And boy, do we have a big one for you. Joined as always by Super Yaya and downtown Dwayne Brown. But more important than these two, we have from The Athletic, it's the newsbreaker. It's the man, the myth, the legend, the mustache, Tommy Scoops. Tom Bogert is back. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
What's going on, boys? Thanks for having me. Thanks for making the time work. I think I got you guys in on the early shift, so that's very kind of you. Thank you.
Way better than our 5 p.m. usual start time for me, my guy. Thank you.
We're running around for that one for sure.
I thought when you initially asked me, and you were like, "Yeah, it's going to be 9:30 our time, 11:30 your time." I was like, "Are you asking me to be on your podcast at 11:30 at night on Thursday?" I was like, "You got to be joking, right?" Because I didn't even consider the possibility that it would be during the day. I was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's great. That's perfect."
DNVR after dark, baby. Get weird.
That's when the real jokes come
out. Obviously, a lot going on in Rapids land, a lot going on across the MLS, and if we have time, we might sneak some questions in there. But Frazier out. Felt like maybe a long time coming, not necessarily because he's a bad coach, but because of just how the season has gone. What was your reaction to that? And maybe, can you kind of identify some key points where maybe that was an inevitability after that?
Yeah, I mean, just look, like the results aren't good enough. It is what it is. And again, like I think it's very obvious, and I don't think anybody is just blaming Robin Frazier for the state of the team. It's a lot of blame to go around. Again, the roster and luck with injuries and stagnation in development, both with established players on the roster and new players acquired, and not having kind of another academy kid coming through since the Cole Bassett, Sam Vines era. Again, Bassett's obviously back, but that's not like Darren Yappy has kind of broken through, but not quite, right? Like, because and it's not like it's his fault or anything, but it's a long-winded way of saying that, like, yeah, there's a lot of blame to go around. And again, while the results weren't good enough for Robin Frazier, like the decision makes sense to move on and start a new chapter. But again, I don't think that anybody is looking at this and being like, wow, Robin Frazier sucks as a coach. They just need to hire a new coach and that's it. Everything's good. They're going to be great. And Robin Frazier will never get a job again. Like, I think that, again, all parties understand that, hey, like sometimes it runs its course. It didn't work out. And I don't know, I'm assuming that Robin's going to be involved in interviews and interest for other head coaching jobs, as he should. But again, like, I think 100% that the Rapids were right to make this decision to move on.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone here, we've said it before, good coaches get fired when they do, when bad seasons happen, right? It's just kind of, you either retire on top or you are probably getting fired from a job. In terms of the search, Pork specifically mentioned he's not necessarily tied to MLS guys. Where's your head out with the search? Like, what are you seeing, hearing, kind of, what are your thoughts on the search? How narrow is the focus down to MLS? Is it pretty wide open still? Like, what have you heard and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I figured this question was coming, and honestly, I don't have a ton of good insight. Like, it's very early in the process, and like you said, like, I don't think that Pork Smith and the front office are like, all right, we 100% need an MLS experienced coach, or you know what, we want to go off the board, we want to bring in somebody new. Like, they're not limiting themselves yet, and again, maybe that'll change during the course of interviews and over the course of identifying potential candidates. But like, again, it's obvious to think of the potential names that I'm sure we can get to later of like guys around MLS, but like there's such a wide pool that, look, when DC United hired Hernan Losada, nobody had heard of him around here, right? Like, because he did really, really well in Belgium, but there's so many leagues, there's so many good coaches. So again, they could go off the board for sure. And like, again, there's nothing that's indicated to me that they're either married to like, we need MLS experience and we need somebody like that, or if they want to go off the board. So again, I'm not sure. One thing I do think is that they're going to need somebody to be a bit more pragmatic, which I was kind of surprised that Robin Frazier wasn't by the end. Like, this team did so well, particularly in transition in that 2021 season. And it seems like that they lost any sort of emphasis to that part of the game. And again, there's a lot of things that coalesce for this season and the last two seasons, quite frankly, to happen. Like, Austin Trusty hasn't been replaced because it's very difficult to do that. Some injuries have happened. Jack Price was the most irreplaceable player on this team, and Diego Rubio is probably the second most irreplaceable. Johnny Lewis hasn't taken a step forward that we've been talking about for 5 seasons straight. Kevin Cabral, who, I'm going to die in this hill. I'm just going to end up sinking on this hill. I'm going to lose. I still think that there's talent there with Kevin Cabral and that Colorado's placing figured out, but he hasn't been an impact addition. Like, Darren Yappy, right. Like Connor Ronan and Andrew Gutman have been 2 very good signings. Like, that's it right now, right? Like, so I don't know. There's a lot of work to do, but I do think that there is a way to put this group in a better position to succeed, because you think of Rubio, Cabral, Lewis, Bassett, Ronan, all these guys. Like, I think that they do best in transition, and the Rapids seem to de-emphasize any aspect of that game.
Yeah, so I mean, when you're looking at coaching specifically, is it going to be like a very stylistic hire? Is it going to be more of a culture hire? Because I think, I do think culturally there is some work to do, but also you have a ton of speed on this roster that hasn't really been utilized. So, obviously the ideal hire would be a blend of the two, but I mean, which way would you lean on that?
Yeah, again, it's a cop out to say both, but it really is like. I think the culture around the club is good. Like this isn't like, say a New England situation or Cincinnati when they hired Pat Noonan. Like that was part of it. They're like, we're going to somebody from MLS. We're going like Chris Albright's like going with somebody I trust. Like we need to reset this and like we need to do here what we did in Philly. Again, with New England, everything going on. You go back when Phil Neville was hired by Miami. Like that was like, all right, we need to change the culture. Like that was all part of it too. Like Colorado isn't in that state, so it's probably more important on the other side of things, but look, like obviously you need to maintain that culture. Culture doesn't just stay forever, right? Like you have to keep at it. So like that'll be part of it. But I don't know. If it was me, I'd be, part of the interview process would be like, look at the roster we have now. Like starting there before, new signings and the audit of the squad, what you need to do. What would you do with this roster? Like, you know what I mean? Like how would you make Kevin Cabral better? And what would you do with Connor Ronan and Diego Rubio? All this. Like that's I think what I would place more emphasis on. But again, I'm not running the search, so I can't tell you for sure.
Quick question from our comments, and I think this is a question from all of us because Rapids Twitter is expectedly in a dark place with the club, which is completely fair.
Rapids Live.
So it's totally fair. My God, it's totally fair. I feel so bad.
And everyone's like, why would any coach come here? That tends to be like the prevailing comment we see when we talk candidates or anything like that. And I think, and I've kind of been leaning the other way where it's like, this is an open MLS job. Like it's a bigger pool than you think. How attractive is this job like among potential candidates?
That is absolutely correct. This is one of 29 jobs, soon to be one of 30. Like it's not the Atlanta United job, right? Or Inter Miami with Lionel Messi, but like there's still a ton of interest. Like I do know that a lot of people have reached out. Like I can say that for a fact. And this is, like I liken it to like FC Dallas before they hired Nico Estevez. Like look at Nico Estevez's resume. He was an assistant for Villarreal, and then he was an assistant with the U.S. national team. Spanish like national, like he's got contacts. And he could have went to Spain. He could have. I'm sure that he would have had a fine chance of getting a job somewhere in Europe, or just stay as an assistant under Greg Berhalter on the team. But like that's a really strong candidate that Dallas got, and I don't think that we'd be sitting here and calling Dallas one of the sexy jobs in MLS or anything like that. So look, it's one of 29 jobs. The infrastructure is like, again, take away that they don't spend like, but you look at the front office, like they've proven a track record. They've had a plan that they've done a lot of things right. Like I think like they have a good structure. This isn't walking into like dysfunction, right? Like I think that this still is an attractive job. One, if for no other reason than it's only one of 29 and one of 30 or whatever. But two, because like they do have a lot of like structural pieces in place that make this like you're going to have the chance to succeed. And one, anecdote that I will add is that coaches look at MLS and look, there's been 7 or 8 coaches changes this year. So it's not like there is no urgency and pressure for results, but like coaches identify MLS as like, I can build something there. Like look at Robin Fraser. He had a chance to build what he wanted. Greg Vanney went to the Galaxy, chance to build again what he wanted. Like you go on down the line and that's a selling point. So it's like MLS just like in general. But like if you go to a place like Colorado with a plan and with a vision, and again whether it works or not, like that's totally up for debate. It hasn't worked the last 2 years, but like that makes it attractive that you're walking into some structure.
So, kind of talking about how attractive the job is. The Rapids did go acquire a high end player in Navarro and another name out there in Tavares. Does that bring any more interest? Does that show coaches that there's more commitment to the team than most people think there is, or is it just kind of like, oh, good players?
Yeah, no, that's good. And I'd take that a little bit further and say, if you're a coach, even if you don't rate Navarro or Tavares, both of them are on loan with a purchase option. So you could even look at it as flexibility. And you could look at, or if you really like those players, you come in your interview and say like, yes, if I get the job, I'd be saying that we should be picking up those purchase options. I'll kick it back to you guys because I'm sure that you've watched more Colorado Rapids than me.
Unfortunately,
and I respect the hell out of it. It's difficult when if there are any other games on at the same time. It's difficult for me to talk about something and put the Rapids on. So you guys tell me, what would you do in the early days of Navarro and Tavares? Are those two players that you'd want to see kept on the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tavares. If he plays a style that isn't on the team, at least from what I've seen. Very physical, uses his body, goes down on contact maybe a little too much for my taste, but the link up between Gutman, Tavares, Navarro to me instantly has shown fruit, if not goals, right? Like they haven't scored yet. So that's kind of what's missing. Both no goals, no assists since they've been here. But I mean, I rate them both pretty well from what I've seen. Probably more Tavares and still TBD on Navarro. I don't know how you guys feel.
To me, it's more like Tavares to me brings a style of play that you don't have on this team, a little bit more creative. Cole Bassett was supposed to be that, but he's become more of a winger kind of connector in the midfield instead of the playmaker that they were looking for. And with Navarro, I think he just brings something that, again, that's not on the team. He has that big size. He can be good at just getting the ball, being a holding nine. And I think that's really what the Rapids want to do, especially quick on transition. He's somebody that can get behind the lines. To me, I think that they're the right guys. It's just, again, no goals. So it's kind of hard to say until you have stats and things that can prove to you that they're actually going to be pieces.
Yeah, and I think with Navarro, like, I think you have to decide, the Rapids have to decide early on, like, to go all in on him or not, because what's going to make him successful is building around him and getting people who can get the ball to him. I think he would be scoring goals already if we had that, but I think we've seen that all season long with Cabral, which I will die on that sinking island with you, Tom. Guys,
climate change, man. What can we do? Not our fault.
But you know, we've had challenges getting the ball to that position.
Yep.
Now we have someone that I think we are all in agreement that we think is very capable. And we've seen some flashes of hotness, right? But we just got to get the ball to him. So I think that commitment has to, unfortunately, come earlier than later.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair. I would just add that, like, I'm very curious to see what they look like under Chris Little, because, like, I know that there's going to be some changes, and again, it's probably going to be, simplifying things and trying to give the players, hey, like, you're playing for your own jobs and contracts and stuff like that, and hey, like, let's put you in the best spots to succeed. Let's simplify the game a little bit. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens over the next month here. And I think that's obviously the data points to, all right, like, we are going to trigger this purchase option. And then, like you said, that can't be the end of it. It has to, okay, like, we need some more creativity in this team. So yeah, like, I'm kind of with you there.
Kind of leading into now that we're talking about players, Porgs has indicated that there is going to be some significant turnover, and there are like a ton of options on this team. And like, you could run back most of it, or you could pretty much have a new, 8 starters, like 7 starters. Like, how much do you anticipate this roster turning over? And do you see guys like Rubio back, potentially Yarbrough back, guys like that may be part of the old guard, maybe shifting out of this club in the winter?
Yeah, so again, it starts at the top end of the roster. It starts, you build around the DPs, right? So if Navarro is staying, like, I think Rubio's somebody who could complement him very well, like that play style, like playing as a second type of forward. But again, that also comes back to the coach. If you bring in a coach that wants to play 4-3-3, I don't know how much that makes sense to use significant roster spots and budget on a player like Diego Rubio, who's like, if it's a 4-3-3, there isn't an obvious spot. Like, it's not the best spot for him, right? Like, so I think all these decisions are contextual. I've been starting to write, the obituary for the season or whatever, and looking forward to the off season. And yeah, like, I wrote down in my first draft so far is like, they're gonna need new answers at 7 or 8 spots in the starting 11, and whether that means 7 or 8 players from the outside, I don't think, but it needs to be, again, like, I don't know. I think Andrew Gutman and Connor Ronan probably right now, and Keegan Rosenberry are probably the 3 names. It's like, yeah, they're definitely going to be back and be starters. Like you said, like, I think Diego Rubio is a starting level player in this league, but, like, again, will he be back, or are they going to do flexibility? Like, I think Maxu, I don't know if it's fair to judge him on everything that's happened this year just because of how contextual center back is. Like, yeah, he's probably definitely, like, from everything that I heard about him and know about him from before he came here, like, that's a starting level, high caliber level player. So yeah, like, he's probably, but, like, there's still a question mark there because, like, I don't think that there are enough definites around this roster. So you go down to it, and again, whether they have question marks, again, around 7 or 8 starting spots, whether that's, 3 of them come from within the squad right now, or more or less, like, that's what they need to decide this offseason. Like, they are in a good spot in terms of flexibility. Like I said, with Navarro, with Tavares, with Rubio, with these contract options, if they wanted to completely detonate this and just explode and go again, like, they can.
So, kind of talking about roster spots, there's a lot of young talent. The Rapids were kind of praised for having a lot of kids coming through the academy during like Sam Vines, Cole Basley. There's been a few stuck in the mud, like Yappy kind of made first team you were mentioning earlier, but hasn't really produced. You have Ollie LaRosse, who hasn't been able to crack into the first team, and you have Seb Anderson. We're all part of that new generation.
Mm.
In your opinion, what was the biggest halt to that next level for the Rapids, from them going from the second team to the first team, kind of like from an outside perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question because there's so many things that go into development, and sometimes like the starting point could just be the talent. And again, because like Robin Fraser was a coach who gave youth a chance, right? Like that's how Sam Vines and Cole Bassett like got their opportunities and were able to become regular starters in the team. And Darren Yappy has gotten his minutes this year as well. And you just kind of go down the list. They've kind of stalled out. Like again, I think Yappy's been encouraging, and again, it'd be unfair to hey, like you need to score 12 goals this year, 17, 18-year-old kid, like however exactly old he is in your first season, like without much creativity around you, right? Like so there's like that's all part of it too, but Colorado isn't the deepest area for youth talent. Like again, everywhere in this country has professional level players. Like I stand by that. You just need to develop them correctly. But the Rapids have been pretty aggressive at like when they traded for Dantu Matore. Like that was a Red Bulls Academy kid. Like they've done this throughout the years, and like the new homegrown territory rules and a little bit loosening of them should help the Rapids because they're really good in identifying the young talent around the league and scouting that and trying to bring them into the fold. So like that's part of the combination. It's not just developing kids from within your area and within your academy. It's identifying those who can kind of add to it, particularly if this isn't Southern California, this isn't Florida, this isn't New Jersey, right? Like those are like the talent rich areas that people St. Louis, right? Like these areas are hotbeds of where a lot of professional players have been produced. So for Colorado, it's always going to be about a balance of the both. And so for this team, like it might just be one of those cycles where there weren't a ton of, natural talents that were really coming through or developed. Like look at Dallas, like they haven't, they still have obviously Jesus Ferreira within the first team and Paxton Pomykal. Like these guys are homegrowns, but like since Pepe, like that kind of age group, like they haven't had another player come through. And again, that's unfair. Like Pepe was an $18 million player or whatever they sold him to Wolfsburg. So it's like, it's not to Augsburg. Sorry. It's not like that's like the barometer, but they haven't really been producing more starters over the last, this little period. So like it happens to every area in the country. And, maybe sometimes it was just a lull right now.
Yeah. And I think, they obviously Beaudry's in the pipeline, but still years away. So there is kind of light at the end of the prospect tunnel, I guess, but nothing immediate that's going to kind of game change. And
Priso was one of those guys they traded for too that just didn't work out. Unfortunately, hasn't worked out so far.
Yeah, I still I don't know. I'd like to see him again over the next 8-10 games, whatever's left in the season, or 6 or 8, because like I don't know. I don't think that he was being used correctly, particularly this year. Yeah. I still think that he's a good player, but again, maybe I'm just wrong. But like I'm willing to give him a little bit longer just to see how Chris Little uses him.
Are there any other guys like that on the roster that you want to see? Like, we're big Bombi guys here. Like, we want Bombi to be playing all the time. And
we have a saying that we probably won't say here.
Sure,
but, yeah, but we do have a saying for Moyes.
Yeah. So. You mentioned Ralph. Is there anyone else that you're like, give this guy minutes for eight games?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of like again, Kevin Cabral. I'm gonna keep saying like I think that he's a very talented player. And so Cole Bassett, I've been big on him for a while. Like I was shocked that it didn't work out for him in the Netherlands. Like playing him in a better role, I think is going to help a lot for him. Like I like if Danny Leyva is going to make it as like a legit like MLS, or like that kid has had so much talent. Hey, maybe we see it like moving forward here. And like so again, there's a lot. Like again, it just goes back to one of the other questions. Like they've got question marks at 7 or 8 starting spots. Like those all need to be like you need to start gathering more data moving forward to that. So it's like again, and I'm looking forward to seeing Andrew Gutman and Connor Ronan kind of in this, in like moving forward too. But it's just like there's so many players that you can name that's just like hey, like let's see if our perception changes on them based on a different system or tactics or philosophies, and then we'll see going into the offseason.
I asked this question to these guys in the chat and on a recent show, and it kind of caught everybody off guard. How many minutes do you think Cabral has this year?
1,000.
Just under 1,000. See, that's what you went high. Wow. Everyone else was guessing like 400 because he's been so invisible. Basically, there's two goals every 450 minutes or something like that, or 1 goal every 450 minutes, which is tough. But I agree with you. I think he needs to play a bunch.
We were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt quite a bit. We were like, well, he hasn't gone minutes, and it
was just kind of surprising. My last question before we get into Dwayne has a question too. Obviously, the classic new coach bump or coach fired bump game
Yeah.
is meeting with pure chaos game coming from New England this weekend. Which force is going to be more powerful in terms of who gets the bump after the crazy couple weeks?
If we're just talking about numbers, like New England have fired 2 coaches since the last time they played, so I don't know. That's 2 versus 1. You know what I mean? Who knows? Well, actually, and if you add the assistants in there, like that's a lot. I don't know how you overcome that.
That's 4 at that point, right?
How do you counter that? Yeah, here I was banking.
Rapids need to start firing more people.
Man,
Like, what
crazy.
happens here?
So related. So Tom, you've been covering this story over on The Athletic.
Get a ball of fun. Let me just tell you how much fun this has been to be around.
So it's been fun to read.
God,
So.
it's been miserable. Let me tell you that much. Go on.
It can always
Everybody
get worse, baby.
So
Always.
as a former player, how much do you think as we look towards this weekend's game versus the Rapids, how much do you think this impacts obviously the players have been making strong statements, very strong. Does that affect this game? Is there any advantage in all of the chaos for Rapids fans to be excited and hopeful for a W this weekend? Where do you think, we know on the coach level what's happened, but what do you think about at the players level?
The positives for him is it's over right now, right? Like Bruce Arena's future has been resolved. Richie Williams is not with the first team anymore. Look, things can still change or like around like what they plan to do in their coaching search and how immediate they want to be or try to be. Like, so there's still a bunch of question marks, but at least like the kind of most pressing ones, like, okay, like Bruce isn't coming back. Like that's no longer a question. Like, okay, Richie isn't with the first team anymore. That's no longer a question, right? Like, so I'm sure, and if I was Clint PA, I'd be doing this. Like, I'm sure that the messaging all week is screw the noise, screw everybody else, play for each other, like play for the boys in this locker room. Nothing else matters. Like, let's come together, let's galvanize. And I think that could be pretty powerful. Like, if you were looking to play New England, last weekend would have been a better time, I think, than right now. And like, no offense, and like, it's just facts are facts that like they're going to play against the bottom place team in the league right now. So like, that's probably part of it too. Like, let's go. Like, let we no excuses. Like, I don't care what's going on. We need to pick up 3 points, right? Like, so let's galvanize around each other. Let's screw everything else, even the organization, whatever. It's just about this locker room. It's just about the boys that you go to training with every single day. So that's what I'd be doing. I'm sure that's what Clint PA is doing. He's been around the league a long time. He's been around coaching a long time. He's a smart guy. Like that's got to be the rallying cry, and like that's usually a pretty powerful one.
I hate that. Thanks for sharing, Tom.
You stabbed him in the heart like 3 times in one sentence.
Yeah, I just kept rambling. I could have exited a few times. It's like one more point.
Kind of bringing up the New England, like that coaching vacancy. How much more attractive is that compared to the Rapids? And do you think that's going to be one of the main competitions when it comes for the Rapids looking for a new head coach?
Yeah, New England and Portland. Look, I guess it depends on what you want philosophically. But again, like it comes down to like, yeah, I'd probably put those in a tier above just based on the spend and based on kind of everything out the infrastructure and everything. But again, like I don't want to take away from like this job. This is still a good job. Like this is, and again, I could just be wrong. Like somebody could be look, Porg Smith has done a whole lot well with the Rapids. Like I am sure that he could have left at some point, right? Like, but he's still here, right? Like he believes in the project. So, and again, looking at other people in the front office that I'm sure could have left, like, so like it doesn't mean that this is like, oh my God, just get this job and move on. Like Robin Fraser, like he did a lot for his reputation, I think, over a couple of years in Colorado. Like I know that he had been waiting for a job, but like waiting for another chance. But whether that came in Colorado, like I don't think Colorado was going to be Robin Fraser's only option, right? Like so, it's not like okay, like I tried to get New England and I tried to get Portland, fine, like I'll take Colorado. Like this is a good job in and of itself, but like again, if we're being fair and realistic, like New England and Portland probably have the edge.
One name we've really liked, just among the 3 of us, is Hackworth in St. Louis. Is that a name you've heard thrown around, and is maybe there a surprise candidate that maybe within the MLS or that is a known quantity that maybe we haven't considered or heard in the rumor mill yet?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what we have and haven't heard in the rumor mill just because it is early. And again, like I'm going to blanket this, I think, for all 3 of these jobs that are open right now, because I think that a lot of the same names should be under consideration for all. Like,
sure.
Let's like again, like Hackwork, I think is a good one. Phil Neville is one that comes up to me. Gio Savarese. These are just, I guess, coaches that have just kind of departed. Like you think about assistants, like Mark DeSantos is probably going to be up for a new job at some point. After being an assistant for LAFC, Ante Razov was almost got the Chicago job before Ezra Hendrickson did. I'm sure Ezra Hendrickson is going to be another name. I'm sure everybody's going to try to call it Jesse Marsh. I don't know if he'd come back to MLS yet, but like again, you just think of it that there are a lot of names and. Like, Caleb Porter, I don't know if he makes a lot of sense for Colorado, but maybe he makes sense for New England. Definitely doesn't for Portland because he's already done that.
Right.
But like, you know what I mean? Just kind of go down the list. Like, there's a lot of guys that like it'd be weird to kind of, I guess, separate, who you want where or like who's like angling for what. Like, I think all of these names should and will be kind of discussed. A couple like offbeat names I've heard, like Dave Vandenberg, the assistant for New England, is somebody who I've heard get some head coaching, or like, hey, he could be a head coach one day. Yohan DeMay in Columbus, BJ Callahan with the national team. Like these are some of the like I guess air quote like off the radar guys, but like the not like Gio Savarese. Obviously, he should be talked. Every club should be talking to him, right? Phil Neville, I think so as well, right? Like, but so then I was trying to go for like I guess the next kind of grouping of names.
No, Callahan made our list. I think that's a really good call there. Scoops, man, we really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully there's some bigger news down the line that maybe we can get you back in here.
Yeah, man. I'm sure I'll check in around when the off season starts. Cheers, boys.
Yeah, awesome. If you're ever in Colorado, man, come on by. You can come in studio as well. It'll be a lot of fun.
Sit right here.
Looking forward to it. We'll squeeze into that tight couch. That'll be fun.
Let's go. All right. See you, Scoops.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Cheers, boys.